welcome to my review for Max Steel. So Max Steel is a movie most people haven't heard of, and in fact a lot of film fans haven't heard of, simply because it has had virtually no marketing. One trailer was released on YouTube, and besides that no other trailers have come out, and I haven't seen the trailers really in front of anything. I've seen a few TV spots. So basically this movie was set up to be the next Gem of the Holograms, where it completely fails at the box office, goes on for another little bit, but in the end just sort of dies out as another kids movie that's based off of something that really has nothing to do with it, and just sort of exists on. And while I don't think that Max Steel is as bad as, say, Gem of the Holograms, it's still a very bad movie. So, Max Steel follows a young boy whose name is Max, who has these weird magnetic things coming out of his hands. He seems to, whenever he touches a phone, it turns off, stuff like that. And it's about how he meets this robot named Steel, who, when they collide, they make Max Steel, and creates some sort of like a superhero that can attack things. And if you can't tell, I'm pretty low energy about this movie because this movie was pretty bad. Out of all things in this movie, the one thing that I can point out was fine was the acting. It was alright for mostly everyone. A lot of people were just sort of sleepwalking through it, and then there were a couple decent performances here and there. So all in all, it wasn't terrible as far as acting goes, but a lot of other aspects it was terrible in, such as the editing, which felt very clunky and very unnatural. It sort of just showed a couple scenes. It showed a very short scene, followed by a medium-ish scene, short scene, medium-ish, and it really didn't have a nice blend. There's just some weird cuts with the editing, such as there's a scene where they're cutting between two men going into a place and trying to attack something, and cutting back to a dinner table scene, which we've seen millions of times before. But when they do it this time, it's just sort of like, oh, intense action, boom, straight to the bottom again. And I may have excused it if they didn't stay at the dinner table for at least 30 seconds before they went back to the action. If they would have done 45 seconds of action and maybe 15 seconds of that dinner scene, that probably would have felt more natural, but it just didn't. It doesn't really know how to build a character, and Max, he's sort of this just stoic guy that doesn't have a lot of emotion, and I don't think that was really the actor's fault. I think that was the screenplay. They didn't give him enough to work with. They tried to make him a nice guy you can feel for by really random things, such as a kid getting pushed down and his books falling on the ground, and then Max coming over and collecting the books and giving it back to the kid, but it really didn't work at all. It felt very forced in there, as if they were just trying to make a character you could feel sympathetic for and a character you could root for, which really did not work at all. It's also one of the only movies I've seen that virtually has no tone. I can't name a tone for this movie. If it's a light movie, if it's an action movie, I can't really name that. Of course it has a genre, it's a sci-fi action, but it doesn't fulfill that genre through its tone, which is rather odd. There's some really just odd things in the movie, such as a kid going up to a computer and searching, "What am I?" with a million question marks, and then also searching, before that, "Why is magnetic impulses coming out of my hands?" Which is not something you'd find the answer for on Google. I have no clue why he even tried searching it up. That was completely moronic. The dialogue is very badly written. It's very weak and doesn't really fit with the characters. The final action scene is so dumb, it sort of hurts. If that makes sense. The final action scene is basically just, ooh, punch, punch. Oh no, he's going to... And then stronger guy hurts smaller guy punches a couple times, bigger guy hurts smaller guy. It just consistently does that until the action scene finally ends. And it's incredibly annoying and sort of just hard to watch on screen. But most of all, this movie is insanely forgettable. I barely remember any shot from this movie. This feels like the type of movie that just comes out and then goes away and is never talked about again. It's released on Blu-ray, no one buys the Blu-ray, so they just sort of put it into the back of storage until they sell it to like a used Blu-ray store where it sits on the shelf endlessly. This movie is not making any mark at all. It's insanely forgettable and not worth your time. And something that very much annoyed me about this movie was its similarities to The Amazing Spider-Man. I mean, if you saw this movie, just think about how similar it is to The Amazing Spider-Man. The main actor even looks like Andrew Garfield. It's about a guy who suddenly has powers that he doesn't know how to cope with. Google searches it and nothing comes up. Okay, spoilers ahead, just so I can explain the similarities between this and The Amazing Spider-Man. Dad dies, doesn't really know what to do, knows that dad left behind secret thing, knows that his new superpower is from said secret thing, goes to meet for the secret thing, discovers that guy who was supposedly friendly guy that helps the organization turns out to be the villain. They have a fight. Yeah, it's pretty much The Amazing Spider-Man, which was insanely annoying because it was nowhere close to that movie. And The Amazing Spider-Man is a fine movie, it's good, but Max Steel is definitely worse. So I have no clue what they were trying to do there. So in the end, I'm going to give Max Steel a 3.75 out of 10. It's an alright movie. No, not an alright. It's a bad movie. It's a pretty bad movie. I wouldn't suggest seeing it. You may find enjoyment if you're not a huge critic and you don't point out a lot of things and you're probably between the ages of 10 and below. But the movie's rated PG-13 for some reason. They couldn't lower it to a PG rating, so a lot of its target audience probably isn't going to see it. I don't understand. So that concludes my review for Max Steel. What did you think about the film? Let me know in the comments below. So I'm Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.